The haters are saying that I am fake. My parents are saying that I am Drake. Oh, dude, that's a bar. And Ross Dellinger agrees with me. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I am Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas, soon to be in Provo, Utah, and in Orlando. I'll see you both this week. 10,000 subscribers by January 1st. I'll shave my head. Thanks for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. I'm not going to exactly say Ross Dellinger agrees. But by the way, today is Beat the Books Thursday. But again, I'm going to talk about some real content. Not that Beat the Books is not real content, but I'm going to get into some real content before we dive into the Beat the Books thing. Because Ross Dellinger tweeted, it's like he's kind of coming late to the party here. This is 9:40 a.m. yesterday. Another hurdle of a college football playoff format change, Washington State and Oregon State. As if we didn't know this. Has he not been listening to Locked On Big 12? Have we not already gone over this? We've beaten the dead horse here. He says those two schools are exploring ways to operate as a two-school league for 1 or 2 years via the NCAA grace period. Ross, why do you think that? I'm not mad at Ross Dellinger, but why do you think that's the case? Because they can sniff, they can smell that they've hit the lottery. They can make $320 million and split it between those two schools. They know that's a thing, so why wouldn't they fight for it? College Football Playoff Committee must answer. Number one, this is per Ross Dellinger, would their champion of Washington State and Oregon State, so the team that won that game, be eligible for the automatic qualifier? Because that's kind of what's written in here for the 12-team playoff, is that the Power 5, like the Pac-12, gets an AQ. Number two, do they each get Power 5 college football playoff revenue? So Ross Dellinger is asking the question that we have been posing here on Locked On Big 12. There are certain media outlets, I think it was Brett McMurphy, who was like, it'll never happen. They'll never go to the Big 12. What did you... Wow. Mac Rhodes came on my show, ESPN Central Texas, and said, dude, never say never. Who do you trust here? And I think Brett McMurphy is fine. I mean, I've seen some of his stuff. He's usually at the forefront of most college football expansion stuff. Where else are these two teams going to go? By rule, as it is written legally, they are going to have to get $320 million paid to them for at least a year if ESPN doesn't do something. What is that something? Well, it's not move them to the Mountain West, because they're going to pee down their leg and be like, what? I don't think that's where that statement goes. Disregard that. They're going to be so PO'd that they're not going to do that. They're not going to go to the Mountain West. But if ESPN says, hey, we'll support you going to a Power 5 conference, then that's when Oregon State and Washington State say, yeah, all right, sweet, we'll do that. So what we're looking at here is Oregon State and Washington State forfeiting that money to be in a Power 5 conference. They would do that. Which conference is it going to be? It's going to be the Big 12. So all of us need to wrap our heads, wrap our minds around the idea that these two teams, that TCU is going to be playing Washington State in a football game in a couple of years in conference. They're going to wave that big Wazoo flag. It's a cool logo, the Cougar logo. Now, Ross Dellinger, who you all know, now he's like, oh, wait a second. It seems as though they must answer if these two schools get Power 5 revenue, which is what Immaculate came on the show earlier this week and told all of you. There is a dilemma here. There are some shows you're like, oh, this is never going to happen. Some people are saying this is never going to happen. No, like what? Why wouldn't it happen? Do you see? Help me. When you go to the water cooler, you bring this to work, and you're like, yeah, guys, I think the Big 12 is about to get Washington State and Oregon State. Do you see how that's just the natural progression? Somebody sent out, they're like, yeah, there aren't any rumors about this. Somebody texted me, like, there aren't any rumors about this. Okay. And like, we weren't talking about Utah when UCLA and USC left the Pac-12. We were like, there's a good chance that Utah comes to the Big 12. These weren't founded like the president at Utah, Kyle Whittingham. They weren't coming out saying, oh, yeah, we're going to the Big 12. No, you just kind of have to put two and two together. There are two teams set to make $300+ million, and ESPN probably doesn't like that. So that's when they said, you know what? Sure, we'll give you X amount of dollars. Instead of 320, we'll give you $30 million to go to the Big 12. All right. So instead of spending $320 million, they can dole that out, spending that on two teams. They can dole it out to other conferences to appease them and put those two teams in a power conference to save a little money, to save a little face even. That's what's going to happen. It's not rocket science. It's just college football. German short hairs. My barber dogs. Things that I like, I like dogs. And this week in the Big 12's best bets, how to bet the Big 12. Beat the books. A lot of alliteration. We got a great slate because I'm chomping at the bit to bet on some of these underdogs. Let's start with the game tomorrow night that I'll be in on hand for in the Lavelle Edwards Stadium for BYU on the home against Cincinnati. Cincinnati 2-2, a loss to Miami of Ohio. They played well against Oklahoma, but you are telling me this BYU team who went on the road and beat an SEC squad at night, they're 2-point dogs at home against a 2-2 new Big 12 team? Not so fast, my friend. Give me that head. BYU, one of my best bets this week, money line against Cincinnati. The line opened with BYU favored. I don't know what's going on with that. BYU is going to win the game, I think. Cincinnati's good. I like Emory Jones. Keaton Slovis is Keaton Slovis. He is, he's not great. He's good. He gets it done. The run game sucks for BYU. Maybe this game's low scoring, but the Cougars win. Actually, games we think are going to be low scoring are usually high scoring. BYU money line. Kansas and Texas. I will give you 5 best bets this week, by the way, but that's like my first best bet is Cincinnati and BYU money line. My second best bet is Kansas, Texas under 61.5, maybe under 62. I don't think this game goes that high. Maybe Texas wins, 35-24, which is under there. And it's close, but I think that's the way this game goes. And what you're picking up here is I do believe Kansas covers 17. It's not one of my locks of the week, not one of my 5, but I do believe Kansas is going to cover 17. But I will have my money at FanDuel on Kansas to cover 17 points because it's just easy. They always play them close. I say always. No, last year wasn't too close per se, but they've beaten Texas a couple times, and I think Texas is just going to be, it's going to be like the Wyoming game a little bit, except Kansas is better than Wyoming. Texas slips up a tad. Quinn Ewers doesn't look like his pristine self, similar to how bad he was against the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. Kansas covers 17. Houston and Texas Tech. This is going to be a tough game to watch. 2:30 on FS2. I'm not really going to hunt for FS2. I will try to find it for you. Texas Tech is the better team. They're 1-3, but they're the Power 5 team. Houston has, middled. They had a really good win against Sam Houston. I don't know what to do with this. It's not on my best bets, but I guess Texas Tech wins in a game that I'm going to struggle to watch. We have the Kansas Texas under. We have BYU money line. Now let's get into some big dogs. Oklahoma, Iowa State. Why is Oklahoma a 20-point favorite against this Iowa State defense? By a point, Iowa State plus 21. Dude, come on. Their defense is good. They are 2-2. They did lose to Ohio, yes, but only by 3. Good teams win, great teams cover. I think they didn't cover that game, by the way. Oklahoma is not going to win this game by 3 touchdowns. Once again, I bet against OU last week, 14.5 against Cincinnati, and I won. This week, Iowa State plus 21. Buy that little point right there. Lock, minus 130. Iowa State plus 21. West Virginia, C.J. Donaldson. Remember that big apology that I gave everybody? C.J. Donaldson, better than Amani Bailey. And I think C.J. Donaldson rumbles, stumbles, gains yards, and at least keeps this close. Do I think West Virginia wins? Tough game to go on the road and beat TCU at night. ESPN. This is awesome. This is like quintessential what I love about the Big 12. This used to be such a big matchup too. 2 3-1 teams duking it out. TCU 12.5 point favorites. Way too much. Not so fast, my friends. TCU probably wins 31-28, 24-21, somewhere in that range. 27-21. West Virginia covers 12.5. And then another one of my locks. My lock of the week. BYU money line. My final lock, my 5th lock here. The Baylor Bears and the UCF Knights. Told you I love dogs. Not in this one. UCF 12.5 point favorites. Will John Rice Plumlee come back? We don't know. Will Sawyer Robertson start? We don't know. If he does, he has thrown 1 touchdown and 4 interceptions for Baylor. He is the worst quarterback in the Big 12 right now. Great kid. Worst quarterback in the Big 12. Couple of running backs named Richardson will play in this one. Baylor's been banged up. Maybe they get some guys back. It's still not enough. They are terrible. Baylor is legitimately terrible at football right now. 1-3 and not even a good resume. They struggled against Long Island on the road in the bounce house. I'll be there watching Baylor lose by 2 touchdowns, maybe even 3. Locks of the week, BYU money line. Kansas, Texas under 62. UCF minus 12.5 against Baylor. Iowa State plus 21 by that point, minus 130. And West Virginia plus 13 against TCU. This has been and always will be. Thanks. You guys are the best. This has been a good week. Oregon State, whoop, whoop. Washington State, whoop, whoop. I want them here. Why not, guys? Literally, why not? This has been and always will be. Locked On. Thank you for making it your first listen every single day. Doce Grande.